I'm excited to introduce our next session. A big part of this next normal will be kids going back to school from elementary school to college. And that brings up a lot of questions that will impact retail and e-commerce, from planning to different customer experiences. And my friend Linda Shein is here. She has spent her career in retail, including serving as the managing director of the J. Baker Retailing Center at Penn's Wharton School. And she's going to be moderating our next session that features executives from a number of companies, True Religion, SPARC Group, Cotopaxi, and Lob. So I will let Linda take it from here, but welcome, Linda, to our virtual stage.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Scott. All right. Welcome to our A-Team panel. How to re-energize customers in back to school 2021 in this sea of constant change. I'm Linda Shein. As Scott said, I'm a business growth architect, and I work with legacy retailers to reinvent and younger digitally native brands to scale offline and online. I'm really excited to moderate this panel and look forward to getting started here. So why don't we do introductions? Just go around the group and everyone can just say who they are, what their role is, and tell us a little bit about what's keeping you up at night right now as you plan for back to school, other than obviously the elephant in the room, which is the moving target pandemic. Angela?
Hi, I'm Angela Clark. I'm the EVP of Digital for True Religion. And so I've been with True Religion for about a year and a half, helping to transform the brand to accelerate growth. And so what I would say is keeping me up at night right now is really about demand generation tactics and plans, mindfully trying to manage what might be happening in the economy in the second half of the year, and being able to communicate that with the C-suite so they really understand a lot of the tactics that we're doing, and get behind, the vision there.
Buy-in. Mike?
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Dupuis. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at SPARC Group, which, for those who don't know, is a leading brand operating company and a joint venture between Simon Property Group and Authentic Brands Group. We operate a portfolio of brands, including Aeropostale, Nautica, Forever 21, Lucky Brand, and Brooks Brothers. And I would say what's keeping me up at night as we head towards back to school in the back half. For me, it's about just staying as close to our consumers, their behavior, their changes as possible, staying agile, and essentially moving at the speed of life for our consumers as back to school.
Love that, moving at the speed of light. Mark.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark Pinard and I'm the head of product marketing at Lob. And for those that do not know Lob, we are the leading direct mail platform. We utilize APIs to integrate and automate direct mail right within your tech stack so that you can execute direct mail as easy as email and alongside your other marketing channels. So we work with a number of clients across all of the marketing channels, not just direct mail. So a lot of the context of my answers today will be on what's top of mind for them. And the biggest thing, honestly, for them, is what is that customer landscape going to look like in this new world, right? And how do we target them and stay on top of it?
Thanks. And last, but certainly not least, Stephan.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Stephan Jacob. I'm one of the founders and CEO of Cotopaxi. We're a digitally native outdoor gear brand with a deep humanitarian and social mission embedded into our entire value chain. One of the big questions that we ask ourselves is to what extent is physical going to come back, right? Physical traffic in our stores. We had a fairly robust events business through our Questival events. So to what extent are we betting on that already for this back to school season and try to drive traffic into our stores versus still, continuing all the digital efforts? So that's something to be determined, which I know we'll discuss a little bit more in detail later.
Oh yeah, that would be great when we discuss omnichannel. Looking forward to that for sure. All right, so let's kick off with the question of the hour, which of course I think we've all agreed is how to remain agile. So given that the world is still in flux, how are you building in flexibility with back to school budgets and commitments? What are your what ifs? And in what areas do you feel most able to adjust on the fly should that need to happen? Anyone?
I'll jump in there. I think there's two things that we've been investing heavily in the last year. One is trying to put in just as many what I'll call customer listening devices as possible to pick up on signals, changes in behavior, changes in traffic patterns and flows to our sites and through our social channels and so forth. So we've made a big investment in that. We've also tried to stay just as fluid as possible in terms of how we are moving marketing investment and budget dollars, not only across programs, but in some cases across brands as well. As I said before, to try and move at the speed that our consumers are moving in and be as sort of tapped into changes that are happening on a daily basis as possible. So I think the agility point is absolutely essential. And I think the combination of the right level of listening and then the right level of flexibility in how and when you can deploy those dollars I think that is the difference between the winners and the runners up this year.
Interesting. So with a portfolio of brands, then you're optimizing your dollars across brands as well. So if you can see that you're getting a better return in one place versus another, then that brand wins, kind of deal.
I think we have the strategy is brand success first, certainly, but there's a reality about how and where we should be deploying our dollars, and we're trying to be working with ownership and working with the brand teams as flexible as possible to tap into consumer behavior and optimize response.
Great. Let's see who's the next victim. Mark, just curious, since to have this broader perspective of multiple brands through your eyes and through your client's eyes, what do you see?
For sure. And to Mike's point, I think being budget conscious is the most important thing, right? Like a lot of our clients are moving to a always testing first mindset. So any campaign that they run, they're looking at things like personalization, content, imagery, coloring, all things from a marketing standpoint that they're able to test, they will. And then it's take a step back, learn what's performing, look at the data, and then move from there. Verizon is a big client for us, for instance, that will test as many as 500 different variables for a single campaign. They're always looking just to optimize performance. And I think that's incredibly important with an environment that's constantly changed. You kind of have to have your head down in the data and always be testing.
Is that true for creative as well? Anybody doing a lot of testing on creative in a way that's using artificial intelligence at all?
Absolutely, I could jump in on that one. We're constantly testing as well. As obviously as a denim brand, an apparel brand, and we have two tactics of trying to get a lot of new customers, and we're finding a younger generation discovering True Religion. So tons of iterations, testing different platforms. We were a little late to the game on TikTok, but we've been testing there, and just having different types of content and being able to see that, and even language testing ads in Spanish versus English and things like that. So those things we're kind of learning and then planning to accelerate as the year goes on.
Great. Stephan?
Yeah, I think so I agree with everything that's being said here in terms of like more data-driven decision-making to respond quickly to changes that you see in the market. The one component I think to agility is more of an internal one around mindset agility, right? So we've very early, last year when this all happened, everybody was sort of like, what are we going to do? What can we do? Try to change our language as an executive team, right? Stop referring to COVID as a crisis and instead encourage the team to see this as an opportunity to just do things differently. And that mindset, I think, has sustained, right? And it has led to, very, very quick turnarounds with regard to product design and development. Our masks, for example, we'd never planned to sell masks, and it's one of our top performing products over the last 12 months. And so I think that's something that we're trying to internally sustain. It's just like being more agile as a team. Besides our regular process for product design and development, we're bringing on what we call a mad scientists on the product team to sort of be that voice to jump quickly on projects and opportunities, And so try to embed and more formalize that as an organization.
Ooh, mad scientists. That's great. I love that. Yeah, I guess that's the agility piece also, as you mentioned, when you start to build out your teams after what everyone's been through, part of that process certainly is going to look like, is this a person who can move and groove and be the mad scientist, should that need be, but also be able to stay the course if, the world isn't imploding. So that's a whole new dimension in terms of recruiting and building your teams. I think that's a great point. Super. Okay, so related to that, can we talk about budgets and how you planned your budgets, dollars wise, as well as, into the various mixes of channel, media, et cetera, versus pre-pandemic, like 2019, and versus like heat of pandemic 2020 back to school. So for 2021 back to school, are your dollars up? Are you shifting into different channels than you would have been previously, or different media? Please talk about that a little bit. Where's the money? How much money is there compared to the past, and where's it going compared to the past? Who wants to start?
I could start with that one. So for our brand, again, because we, for back to school in particular, we are going really big. So we bought twice as much inventory as we had last year. My budget's much bigger. It's part of a long-term growth strategy overall that's really big, but just for back to school in particular, when I came to this brand, I worked for brands like Levi and other brands who were like back to school was second to, Black Friday week. At this brand, they haven't had that legacy. So it's been a full strategy of like, how do we really plan, pre-planning prior to planning prior to back to school, what that new acquisition strategy is so that we get those people in the funnel. So when we get to back to school season, we have this budget. So our spend budget is exponentially bigger than last year. We're branching out into a bunch of channels, which we're testing now, which I just spoke about a little bit. And we'll continue to expand that and then really go, full scale. And we're also launching some other enhancements on the site itself for back to school. So launching, retention programs, we're launching loyalty. So my tech team right now is probably in distress mode because we have a lot of things that we're planning to do. Also revamping the site experience, the shopping experience, reintroducing denim, which is a core of our business. So for us, to me, back to school is the beginning of the game changer for the second half of the year.
And so would you say then that you're assuming that that schools are going to be 100% open, college campuses, K through 12, like the whole shoot and match?
I don't even think we're even too concerned about that, actually, because for us, our business was so disrupted by that time. We had sold through a lot of our best inventory. We weren't getting production in when we needed. So we're starting with a lower base, first and foremost. And then secondarily, there's just that natural behavior of like fall is a time to refresh your wardrobe. We know that people are doing that now because they're out and they're excited to get back out in the space. So even if they're not going back to school, I think there's still going to be a need to buy a hoodie or a sweater or some jeans just to refresh your wardrobe.
Great.
Yeah, I'd echo. I agree with everything Angela said. I think we have a robust budget and set of initiatives that we're planning to deploy at back to school and even starting now as we lead up to, as Angela mentioned already. Agreed. That's not just in terms of sort of the marketing programs that we support, but site-side enhancements, mobile app enhancements, omni-channel program enhancements as we get closer and closer. We believe wholeheartedly that we're going to strike an optimistic tone, going into the summer and as we get into the heart of back to school. And we believe that's what our consumers are looking for. They're looking to get back to whatever this new normal is, and we definitely see the summer and the early fall as an opportunity to connect with them on that level.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this before we move on?
I think a big thing for our clients is that, again, is just the agility to be able to switch from purely online digital channels to offline as well, and to target the customers where they're at. I think that's a huge thing. I mean, reality is that 2019 was kind of like the height of digital marketing. And then as the pandemic came along, people were stuck in front of their computers all day. So marketers need to expand kind of like their channels, if they will. And a lot of them went to the offline approach, which I think is incredibly huge. And I think what that has done is it's just, for at least for our clients, it's created a lot more flexibility within the marketing teams, right? And then I think that agile approach is what we're going to see, constantly moving forward, especially with back to school and as the world starts to open up again.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into a discussion about omnichannel. Excuse me. So, we know that in an omnichannel world, 1 + 1 = 3, right? Like your online results and your offline results separately will never be as robust as if you're hitting them from all sides at once. And those customers who shop omnichannel are much more valuable in terms of their lifetime value than those who don't. So what are your plans, particularly given, this slowdown in store traffic due to the pandemic? What are your plans to integrate omnichannel for back to school? Everyone seems to think that, with inventories up, budgets are up, marketing is going to be robust. But what about the piece of, foot traffic into the stores? How are you guys thinking about that? Any plans to use pop-ups, direct mail, other offline channels, or anything new online to make the omnichannel experience more robust? Anybody?
Happy to speak to that. So we believe in omnichannel, right? We're a digitally native brand. So we're online first, built the brand online in the first 3-4 years, and then open up to wholesale, or with REI's as our anchor account, and over 500 specialty retail accounts. We have currently 5 physical retail stores and are opening another 3 to 5 this year, around the back to school time period. So from that perspective, we're almost like channel agnostic, right? There's sort of no legacy channel conflicts, because we're still so young. We almost don't care where a customer discovers the brand, and instead try to optimize for an amazing experience no matter where that happens, right? Whether it's our controlled environments or whether it's through a third party. And so for us, omnichannel is a huge opportunity also around back to school. We do believe that most campuses will be back in session. Several of our stores are in direct proximity to schools and to campuses, and so we're trying to leverage that as much as possible in terms of having our campus representatives help drive traffic to the stores, and really all the opportunities in terms of buy online, pick up in store, inventory visibility feeds, etc., to just take advantage of that. We have the traffic online, but sort of paint that picture that they can also engage with us physically. During Q4 of last year, for example, when we saw these crazy delays, all the carriers were struggling to get packages to people. We ran campaigns around the zip codes of our physical stores to say, hey, instead of like trying to get that package pre-Christmas and having some risk there, just come to our stores instead. And that was really successful. So I think there is, if in the right locations and if sort of negotiated with the right leases, physical retail is 100% part of the strategy for us.
Yeah, with the new stores that you're planning to open in the next year, can you speak to that a little bit? Or are you looking to be open in time for back to school? Where are they located strategically? With so many retailers closing stores, obviously you're working off a much smaller base, so that's a little bit of a different risk profile. But can you speak to that a little bit in terms of, what's driving your ROI thought process as you open stores? With all the vacancies, are you getting like crazy awesome deals that you want to brag about?
Yeah, I don't want to brag about them because they're vanishing. But yeah, we took advantage of the slowdown in retail and increasing level of vacancies to negotiate more performance-based leases, which obviously makes the whole calculation on an ROI a lot easier than if you have this like massive fixed cost base. And so yes, we're taking advantage of that. I think that window of opportunity is very rapidly closing as more and more brands are recognizing that opportunity and are jumping on that. But yeah, we take a very data-driven approach. Obviously, look at our e-commerce, our wholesale sell-through, and then our physical events data from the past to identify clusters of zip codes where we have a strong presence. The brand is already prevalent, And that's where we would then supplement that with a physical retail store, very small footprint, about 1,000 square feet, and very aggressively, obviously negotiating these leases to test out first before we make long-term commitments.
Yeah, Mike, you guys have a few stores. Would you mind chiming in?
We sure do. About 2,000.
The opposite end of the spectrum in terms of store count.
Just to add on top, because we certainly think that convenience, increasing convenience factor, lowering friction, those are going to be winning strategies for back to school, and all of the go-to-market programs around buy online, pick up in store, buy online, ship from store, and any number of combinations of those strategies we think are essential, and we've certainly worked hard to accelerate some of those and bring them to bear. The other side, though, of the omni-channel discussion, I think that's important to mention is just the data side of it, the back-end data side of it, and making sure that the data that you're collecting from all of these different transactions and all of this robust multi-touch omni-channel behavior is actually being captured, being aggregated, being resolved into insights, and then activated against in terms of how you take action to really measure not only the value, but then encourage the behavior that the consumer has clearly told you they exhibit. So we are just as active, if not more active, on that front, making sure that we have the data channeling into the right environments, being aggregated, and insights being pulled out of it so that we can take appropriate action, which goes back to the agility and the movement of focus and funds as needed to implement some of those winning strategies. So I think both of those things are equally important.
And speaking of like the data warehouse, I guess data is subject to interpretation, right? So when you have endless streams of data coming at you, you got to kind of decide who you want to believe about what is being interpreted. Do you find any struggles with that, in this environment now where there's just so much data to have the right, analytics in place that you can actually make decisions based on the data? And do you ever just kind of say, wait, what? No, thank you, Ms. Data, analytics person. Now I'm going to go do what I know is the right thing. I really appreciate the insight. Like, how often does that happen, and how wedded are you to the actual analytics that are coming at you? That was for you, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that never happens, but of course, I think.
No, it's a very hard thing. Like when you're sitting in that chair,
Yep.
you can always blame it on the, this is what the data said, but that doesn't matter because in the end of the day, especially now, the register's got to ring. So just curious about
all we can do is we're constantly looking at new data sources, trying to evaluate the sort of the quality of that source data. And I would say more and more, ramping up the processes that we use to aggregate, stitch that data together, and to do things like identity resolution and profile building, segment building, and then ultimately activating against those segments, testing those results, and then reinforming the data set itself. I think that you have to harden those processes of how that loop works. And with new data sources coming up all the time, and with these systems being able to ingest more and more, that's a job, that's a workload that we're going to be faced with for quite some time. But seeing increasingly positive outcomes from that work, fuels our willingness to keep going on that.
So if we want to wrap more of that data analytics conversation into a discussion around customer experience, and in the last year, obviously there's been tremendous investments in digital transformation at lightning speed, which is necessary. And so can you tell us a little bit about how the customer experience is going to look different in your post-transformation back to school, and how have data analytics played a role in the thinking about what that should look like? Angela, since you are on the on the cusp of a whole new experience in back to school. What is that going to look like for you?
Yeah, so I think, Mike's point about data is really critical. So, in that overhauling of the navigation, filters, search, we're aggregating, the data to really help inform how we're making those changes. And to your point, there is still that gut instinct that, this is how people shop denim. This is how people shop this category. And then kind of combining those for the best execution. And then I would say, we're redesigning the denim PDP page. So how people shop that denim page right now is not optimal. It's not best in class, and everything that we try to do, or I try to do, I should say, I really want to do best in class to be competitive. So that's a big one for us. And like I said, kind of reintroducing the denim collection, and then retention tools. I think for us, we're pretty far behind when it comes to the data element of it. And so we were looking at a loyalty program that includes a CDP. So to help clean up all that data from the stores and digital, so we can truly approach the customer and speak to them in a true one-to-one way that we want to, and that have that loyalty be optimized and personalized for each person. And so I think that's kind of the new era of loyalty. And I think I'm really excited about that. And I think that's going to be, to us, the biggest game changer. I wanted to squeeze in a web app this year. But like I said, I think my tech team would probably choke me out if I gave them that in this loop. So, so we're like, okay, let's do this. And then next year we'll get to web app. But, our customer is, we're 80% mobile traffic. So those things make really good sense for us, and we are continually to gain ground for the millennial and Z shopper and Gen Z shopper. So for us, those things are hypercritical.
Interesting. 80% mobile. What about everybody else? Where are you percentage wise on mobile?
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
Same neighborhood. Yep.
Cool. I just want to take a minute to circle back to the omnichannel conversation also a little bit, and give Mark a chance to talk a little bit about what he's seeing in his customers, his clients, and how if there's something new and different that's happening in omnichannel. Are you seeing people doing pop-ups? Obviously, they're leaning into direct mail is something a lot of young brands especially started to do. And it's the mailbox is empty compared to the physical mailbox compared to the email box. But what are you seeing them do besides direct mail? Anything else that's interesting in terms of new channels that, where you're competing for their dollars?
Yeah, no, obviously a shameless plug for incorporating direct mail as part of your omnichannel experience. But I think a lot, so even to the last question, to what's going on here, is that I think a lot of our customers are just trying a different mix of things. Like, right, do we send them an email incorporated with a direct mail piece, then an SMS message, right? They're trying to figure out if they see like an uptick in foot traffic or digital traffic based on the actual mix of what's going on in the different channels. And I think the huge thing with this is like the implementation of technology as part of that digital transformation gives you those bright metrics at your fingertips to understand what's performing and what's not. So a lot of our clients are just heavily involved in taking the time throughout the pandemic to transfer some of their old workflows into more of a digital world, and then truly bite onto the omnichannel. Not only like today, but I think moving forward, like workflows as far as when it comes to marketing and the channels that you're trying have changed, and it's now the new norm and should be the new norm moving forward. And I think that's the biggest things for our clients is that they're utilizing that omni-channel approach. They're figuring out what works and what mix of activities work in order to optimize performance across whatever it might be.
Yep.
Now it echoes that we've seen the same, right? Physical mailing still work, right? Both in terms of driving traffic into stores with little lightweight mailers, as well as cataloging. We do 1 or 2 catalogs per year, and they see really, really good return based on matchback analysis. And so we believe in physical mail.
Stephan, can you, as long as you got the floor, can you talk a little bit more about your customer base and how you have been experimenting with influencer marketing? What kind of role does that play for back to school? Particularly, you've talked about the brand ambassadors and your college campus program. Can you talk about that a little bit more? And how do you engage influencers? What are your requirements to be part of your squad? And how do you manage the ROI? Do you manage the ROI? And what does that look like?
Sure. Yeah. We've experimented and learned with this. We, from the get-go, said we're not a brand that will have an influencer jumping out of a helicopter and like skiing down the slope of a mountain somewhere in like a crazy environment, which has been sort of the norm for the outdoor industry, right? Celebrity athlete endorsements. We just feel differently. We want to be a more inclusive, a more approachable brand, and so we've always shied away from sort of this celebrity approach, more to a sort of nano and micro influencer world. We look very carefully at genuine alignment and accretiveness to the brand. So is this somebody? We don't care so much about how many Instagram followers you have. Of course, that's part of the mix, right? But much more important that you're genuinely influencing your circle of influence in a real way, right? So that could be somebody who regularly volunteers or rallies others to volunteer in their community to tie into the sort of do-good aspect. And even if that's a small circle, that will be a very genuine connection, right, that person has. And so we look for quality over quantity. We look for both in terms of their followership, but also in terms of like how they present themselves online. And so less is more with regard to our campus connectors. The same is true. We basically vet them as carefully as we would a full-time employee. We don't look for the most popular kid on campus, but rather somebody who can truly execute. It's easy to start a campus program and see some momentum for 6 weeks. It's really hard to sustain it in the long run. And so I'm really looking for people who are genuinely aligned with the brand, genuinely stoked to be sort of that voice in their respective communities and help us spread the brand through physical events, through product placement, and obviously bridging to our physical stores in campus proximity.
Great. And just a real quick hit, we just have a minute left. Mike, would you mind speaking to my favorite topic of live shopping as the only one in the group that really seems to be, tiptoeing in that area anyway? Just for a minute, can you tell us what you're doing with it, if you're seeing any results? And I'm talking about, real-time shopping, not, the one-way kind of traditional QVC environment.
Yeah, sure. I think just a quick hit on Stephan's last point, which is could be a verbatim is the approach that we've taken to that. And I have to give a lot of props to our social team, both at SPARC and at ownership, for being so on top of those conversations as they're rolling, and then sort of being part of the conversations as they catch fire. But on the live stream, I think what I would say is that we have a lot of folks that are looking at and talking about some of the innovation that's been happening in that space, and I think the experiences are getting more and more elegant and seamless in terms of incorporating video, live video shopping experiences, sort of associate assisted sales. And although we do not have active programs within the SPARC network right now, there's no question that it is a space that we are watching and expect there to be some really exciting developments in the coming months and year. So it is something we're watching closely.
Awesome. Well, we'll be watching. It looks like I'm getting the hook here. Time to wrap it up. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this wonderful panel. Thank you to all the panelists for sharing all of your wisdom and ideas. And we'll look forward to doing this again next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.